in them. But those are just a few minor tweaks, and that's all like technical stuff. Yeah. But as far as the planning issues, whole different animal, and that is where I think the public really does need to take a strong voice, because the planning department, as opposed to the building department, is much more challenging to work with, and it feels much more political in there. Building department, they just want safe buildings. You know, they're pretty straightforward.
So, since you're talking, Chris,
Yeah.
you wanna just give us a little bit about what else you do?
Yeah,
or-
sure. Like Najel mentioned, I do design and consultation with owners. There's always a sustainability component. Like, I've been fortunate enough that I've had a strange enough background that at this point I only attract more awesome, weird projects, you know, like, so that's the advantage of doing, it's like and then it just keeps pushing me in that direction. So I've been involved, I started with becoming interested in natural materials. That was about 10 or 12 years ago. Earth, straw bales, salvage materials, all that kind of stuff. Did a few projects like that, and that's when I started getting other phone calls. And so at this point I've done maybe a half dozen or so buildings and installations out of earth and straw and salvage materials here in Muncie, Indiana, one in southern Indiana, one in northern Indiana, a little bit in Michigan. Got to work on some cool projects in Brazil that used bamboo as well as wattle and daub and timber frame and that kind of stuff. So, you know, I've done a lot of natural materials stuff, and I love that, but that's just like one component of what I do. I'm also an advocate for the Living Building Challenge, the Living Community Challenge. Do a lot of volunteer work for the Living Future Institute, because I believe when it comes to the certification, which I think is very important, that's the best game in town. Everybody's probably familiar with LEED. LEED is very popular and well known, and that's great. And LEED has broad market acceptance. For a long time, LEED was very much a greenwashing program. It's not that way anymore, but that's because there are organizations like the Living Future Institute that for the past 10 years now exist as the cutting edge, the bleeding edge, and then that creates some tension that pulls the other certification programs to meet a more rigorous standard. So things that are now coming into LEED version 4 have been in the Living Building Challenge for 5 years or 6 years. So I actively promote that type of stuff. I gave a talk for the CSL, which was awesome, because actually that talk, Colin Cudmore, the inventor of the Garden Tower, was at that talk. Because of attending that talk, decided to certify the Garden Tower as a living product. And so now we have a local company that has certified one of the first 7 living products in the world, which means that they have demonstrated that their product has a net positive impact across 20 different dimensions. Very difficult to do. And so they've broken some ground that way, and it's awesome. And it shows that advocacy can work, and occasionally you give a presentation that somebody actually listens to. It doesn't happen every time, but yeah, so I do that. And then I also, I'm not a licensed architect yet, but I'm working towards licensure, so that's like a 10-year process. I didn't realize that when I started. It actually takes an average of 13 years and change to reach architectural licensure from the time you start. I've got about 3 years left of that. So I'm finishing my Master of Architecture thesis right now, and that's how we touched base at one point, Sylvia and I, about open source ideas, because I'm a big believer in open knowledge sharing, open knowledge concepts, as woven into my Master of Architecture thesis. It's basically it lies somewhere at the intersection of open knowledge sharing and web-based platforms for collaboration, new models for architectural businesses that can provide value to people that currently aren't being reached, which is actually almost everybody. Like, how many people in the room have hired an architect or designer before, No? One. Right. Very few people, and there's probably people here that are solidly middle class, and so there's a number of problems there, and it's because architectural services are expensive and the value isn't demonstrated of what you really get for that money. So part of my thesis is to look at how can we create sustainable business models that deliver services to people that aren't currently served, and deliver them at price points that maybe, borrowing from a number of things, like an iTunes model. Like, what kind of products can we deliver at the $10 price point or the $1 price point that actually create value for people and can be sold many, 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 many times? Because right now the model for delivering architectural services to people that can't afford it is pro bono. And pro bono is not a business model. Pro bono is a way of skimming a little bit of time off of lucrative projects and allocating it to other projects, but I don't think that that's very sustainable, to be honest. So, yeah, in a nutshell, those are some of the irons I have in the fire.
Well, speaking of fun, you can get the beer waste from Jeff and make 3D printed filament and use in your buildings. I prepared a video clip of a company in North Dakota that does that. We don't have time to play it, but so the idea is sustainable buildings should use only sustainable materials, and nothing beats biomaterials, which is another link of, from agriculture into industry, because we shouldn't think of agriculture just food production, and most of it is not even food, but also a source for industry. And here is where the symbiosis between agriculture and industry is recreated, because that's how we started, until we went awry on a lot of synthetic materials that we don't know what impact they have on our health, on the environment, on other species. So there is a return to biomaterials. I don't know if you have looked at hempcrete, so we're trying to revive industrial hemp in the United States. I'm working with other partners on that part of things, where we should use plants like bamboo is the most versatile plant you can think of, but there are others that are native that we can use as industrial material, not only for food or no, human food or animal food. So there are a lot of very fun materials being created. One of them is this buzz feed, which is really made of out of beer waste. So if you go for 3D printed material, you cannot 3D print everything, but you can 3D print a lot, even for a building. They also use coffee waste to make filaments. So here are examples where some people found usages for something that is an unavoidable waste, right? You cannot prevent coffee waste or beer waste, but you can find a way to reuse it, put it in use in a completely different direction. But you'll get the presentation. Please play the BuzzFeed video, and there are a lot of video clips, so I hope you will like those, but we can also look for others to give you. But we inserted a lot of video clips too. So we think maybe Dan should finish with his. And Stephen didn't talk about his work. While Dan is preparing, while we'll set the projector, why don't you tell us what you do?
Okay. I'll talk about 3 hats. I'm on the, as Andrea was saying, Center of Sustainability Projects Discardia and the Trash and Refashion event. And the ideas there are taking materials out of the waste stream, repairing them, reuse, repurpose. And then on the Trashin' event, it's just amazing things people can make clothes out of. A Tyvek suit, which isn't practical in some ways, but it's just amazing ideas, and every year it gets better, and just the kind of collaboration that's involved with that. The learning that's involved with that, people really coming together as community. And again, I think like John was saying, it's fun doing this stuff, and that's what people engage with. Food Policy Council, I'm on the steering committee of that, and as Andrea was good enough to keep emphasizing, we're really focused on the comprehensive master plan and what can be done to better support local agriculture in general, local sustainable agriculture in particular. Whether it's people being able to grow food on their own property, grow food and protect it from deer, okay, some things like that. Maybe you need a tall fence and you get into code and so forth there. But I guess the whole food thing for me, I'll paraphrase Michael Pollan, who said something along the lines of, what you choose to put on your fork has more impact on things like energy, environment, economy, all that, than almost any other choice you make in your life. And really understanding what that's about and what we can do, and Food Policy Council saying the local choices are the better choices, and across the board. So that's Food Policy Council. And then last, I am board chair for Bloomington Community Orchard. The orchard is going into our 7th year now, which is really something. The idea is it's a public commons, It's actually land owned by the Bloomington Parks and Rec. A SPIA student at IU had an idea for her senior project, something to do with urban agriculture, again, common land, all that. People at Parks and Rec got interested, and there was a big community call out, 130 people, and they came together to create an orchard. Okay, and it's just amazing the things that are going on at the orchard site. We're having our big event, by the way, this coming Saturday. Everybody is invited, Cider Fest, from 12 to 4 p.m. At the orchard, South Highland, right across from the YMCA. We have 100 fruit trees, strawberries, blackberries, raspberries, and it's, you know, a lot of it is about growing the food and all that, but to me, it's even more getting in connection with the land, where the food comes from, and the connections we make with each other as we do things in the orchard. And my wife sometimes will bring up, you know, the weeding, the mulching. Well, we need a lot of that around my house too. And I say, it's not as much fun as when I go to the orchard and you deal with other people. And, you know, now what's been going on, there's plenty to do at the orchard, but our outreach is going to neighborhood associations. And there are neighborhood associations that have now planted their pocket orchards. We help them get the trees. Often we get the trees donated, so there's no cost to them. And we work with them in planting things. We had one of our first outside of Bloomington events last year. We went to a Cummins facility in Columbus and planted some trees there. This year, and Sylvia's interested in this, in Indianapolis, there'll be a orchard planting in November. So the idea is, it's something that people just seem to really connect to, of growing food and doing that collectively. What people learn, it's just amazing. And again, if you haven't been to the orchard, you're welcome to come by anytime. It's just open, you can walk around. But also we have weekly, we call them work and learn days. They're on Saturdays from 1 to 4. And you know, right now we're spreading mulch and we're turning compost and kind of getting ready to put things to bed, but there's a lot people learn from doing that. And again, just lots of different people get involved in lots of wonderful ways.
Before Dan, we've heard mention of the comprehensive master plan a couple times. I really urge you, you know, if you care about what's going to happen in Bloomington, to read it, because it is the vision, and all cities, towns have to complete one of these. This is, I think it's a state, federal regulation that all cities must do this. It is to be a vision statement, and it will drive law, ordinances. So I think it's a very important document, because if it's going to be driving the laws, then it needs to have a good, clear vision. It needs to be articulated well. So if you have the time, read it, critique it, send in your comments. You know, you can send them to me and I can pass them along too. The Bloomington Commission on Sustainability, that's one of the things we are doing. We are reviewing it, and the Food Policy Council has reviewed it and made comments. So again, it's all part of making this a better community. Everyone's input is really critical. So, citizen action.
Yes.
So I'm sorry, but we'll let Dan.
Real quick, is it more powerful, you think, to make comments as individuals or to get your organization to submit?
I think your organization, and as individuals,
Okay.
however people want to do that, but organizations would make a powerful statement too.
And the other thing, because we had a great meeting with Dave Rollo, City Councilman at the Food Policy Council, and the idea of organizations like-minded, you know, sort of looking the same direction, really helping each other with the feedback. So it's not just a single organization that talks about solar energy or something like that, but hearing it from multiple organizations really helps the impact.
So my name is Dan, and I guess I'd call myself a social entrepreneur at this point, although it's really never been about profit to me. I wanted to backtrack to Nejla just before I forget this book that I wanted to refer to you. It's called Resilience, Transitioning to a Steady State Economy. And the reason I wanted to bring that book up about your work is because it approaches affordable housing with some modeling of community land trusts, which most of the time community land trusts are used to preserve land, but there's actually an equity model where community land trusts can be used to create affordable housing. And one of the forecasting models in that book talks about how home ownership could essentially save a homeowner about $400,000 across the life of the home by buying a home from or sort of leasing a home from a community land trust rather than leasing it from a profit-driven bank or whatever in the mortgage sense or whatever. So community land trusts are something I'm becoming interested in. But anyway, so I too am discouraged by the magnitude of the problems facing us in the Anthropocene. You know, this is the most critical time in human history where, you know, when we can literally right now as we're talking see that the oceans are losing just a majority of life in them with one foul swoop of acidification of the oceans. I mean, for us to continue business as usual and sort of think that we couldn't just toxify the air to the point where, you know, we don't exist anymore. There are forecasts that suggest that we could run out of breathable air if we continue business as usual by as soon as 2048. So it's pretty discouraging news. And so I'll say that I'm very encouraged by being able to share a room full of people who have dedicated their lives just as much and are just as passionate as I am about creating these solutions. I think that there's a lot more of us that are out there, and they need help finding the others as well. So my company that I formed really just February this year after about 7 years of freelance as Broad Ripple Unlimited is Broad Ripple Inc. And so Broad Ripple Inc. is filed as a nonprofit mutual benefit corporation, and after consulting with the Indiana Cooperative Development Center, they recommended that I file as this model. And so this model, nonprofit mutual benefit corporation, is essentially the model of the business model to file as a worker-owned cooperative. And so what that means is whereas corporations incentivize performance, and so they give these ginormous benefits to executives or whatever, what a nonprofit mutual benefit corporation, which is not a tax-exempt organization, what this model does is incentivize the corporate profiting, but then distributing those profits equitably across all of its members who are worker owners or whatnot. So I'm in my first year right now with a real clear path forward as to how we get from this point where it's a one-person shop that's essentially transitioning from a small freelance into an internet marketing agency. So that's essentially what we're doing. I formed this business because several years ago I thought that, you know, what force was needed to accomplish the paradigm change in our society was really information, was really marketing, was really you know, helping people to understand what needs to happen and not just the doing it. So that's really the motive of why I formed this business, was to be able to support grassroots efforts to make this paradigm shift towards sustainability by giving websites, by giving internet marketing and digital marketing and so forth. And so a lot of what we do, probably about 60% honestly of what I do is pro bono. So I do a little web help with Sustainable Indiana, Evoke Arts and Media, Indiana Hemp Industries Association, Keystone Monon Community Gardens, Indie Local Food Guide. So what I've found is that there's no shortage of grassroots efforts that are noteworthy, that are substantial, that are accomplishing things with $0 in their budget in that extremely competitive tax-exempt nonprofit world. And they need this marketing, they need this technology to disseminate their message. And so, you know, I try to be there just as much as I'm there for my clients. I really haven't advertised to this point, so my business has mostly been word of mouth, and I've got exceptional clients who are doing really exceptional game-changing things, such as Ezra's Enlightened Cafe, which is Indianapolis's first raw, GMO-free, organic, vegan because they use honey, but essentially vegan cafe, and that's coming from a place of wellness education and so forth. And so it's not just a exquisite food, it's actually food for wellness and food for health. Other clients of mine, Glow Natural Body Care, who does all natural, she manufactures her own body care products that are all natural with no processed ingredients. A lot of cutting edge clients along those lines that come from Main Street. And so a design challenge for me was to realize that to be a sustainable marketing company, you got to reach the corporations, because that's where those are the people that have marketing budgets. But at the same time, Main Street is the people who need these services, whereas the corporations sort of have their ad agencies and so forth. And so the challenge is to bring internet marketing agency level work down to the ability for Main Street to afford it. And so that's really what I'm struggling to do. Mutual benefit corporation is not synonymous with B Corp. B Corp is another thing by the B Labs, and so B Labs is a non-government organization that does independent certifying and auditing of corporations on the basis of their environmental factors, their manufacturing, their labor standards, and so forth. And so I've done the preliminary look at applying for B Corp status. There are about 7,000 or 8,000 benefit corporations, so it makes them pretty much huge players in the world market to be a part of that network, because that is a network of trust, that is a network of integrity, where these corporations sometimes are zero profit or low profit models because they're actually just formed to perform public service. And so I feel that Broderpool Inc. Is really in line to probably be accepted as a B Corp in the first 3 years of our existence as Broderpool Inc. And so we came from, I formed this company in the neighborhood of Broderpool, but my vision the entire time was not about being just a member of this place, but was really about emphasizing to my clients and to the public at large the broad ripple, the emerging impact that we can have on the world around us. So I'm a little bit aggressive in terms of attempting to do real world solutions to these problems, and that's why I've kind of called this this presentation problem solving in the marketplace, because I do believe, just as much as corporations have had enormous contributions to the problems that we face, now it's time for corporations to voluntarily choose without regulation to become ambassadors of social responsibility and start to take on those hidden costs. And so, there's a study that came out last year that says 100% of industries, 100% of corporations would not be profitable if they included their hidden costs. And so what that means to all of us is that we have to, whereas we're a public that's had wage theft passed on to us for 4, 5, 6 decades, just getting more and more, and taxation that's gotten passed on to us, and our dollars just do not go as far. At the same time, that is the reality. We do have to make some shifts to begin as consumers to accept our part in the producer's consumer responsibility, to pay higher premiums or pay more realistic premiums that start to reveal those hidden costs and include them, because we can't just externalize everything to other people and act like that's some way forward in a sensible society. And so the production that I do is dynamic and responsive in the sense that we've learned from manufacturing. I don't try to get out there and sell more work than I can handle, so I pretty much just focus on my clients one at a time and whatnot, and sort of turn around digital just-in-time production and not backlogging a whole bunch of inventory or so forth. So I'm very responsive in terms of that. We're adopting the triple bottom line values. So we want to be in business, we want to make money, but really, our passions are more about correcting these ills, the oversight of treating people terribly as corporations, the oversight of the costs the businesses have on the planet, and so forth. And so anyways, the segments that I offer right now, we offer design services, consulting, managed web hosting, and that managed web hosting is actually ran on servers that purchase wind credits. 300% of the energy they consume, they purchase wind credits for. So even though we can't make our servers just instantly run on green energy, we do offset our usage 300% with wind credits. So we're also internet marketing, media production, community organizing, and advocacy training. We're rapidly opening up a bookstore in 3 locations that'll sell books and DVDs. From publishers like Chelsea Green Publishing, New Society, North Atlantic Books, Shambhala Publications, So a variety of publishers that are nonfiction titles on everything from agrarian to spirituality, DVDs on spirituality. We are going to be selling our books in Ezra's Enlightened Cafe, Agrarian, which is a home gardening store, as well as Rabble Coffee. So those are the 3 locations that we have in Indianapolis that'll be online before 2017 for sure. The next 2 projects I'm working on besides the internet marketing company is Salubrious, which will be a local food and wellness company. Right now we're doing some dabbling in helping cancer patients connect with holistic practitioners and approach fighting cancer holistically. But in terms of that brand name, I think we're going to do a local hummus, and we're going to do alkaline water and ionized water and so forth. So salubrious is a Latin word for healthy or wellness. And so, we're essentially going to do vegan food and wellness as a business that enfolds our worker ownership into food and wellness and not just internet marketing. Our philanthropy we're working on kind of for 2017 is similar to the Center for Sustainable Living in the sense that we're working on an umbrella nonprofit called Roots Regeneration. And we want to be able to empower other people's projects, which is why I said, like Center for Sustainable Living, we want to be able to offer that 501c3 so that every project that's just maybe it's a 4-month project doesn't have to file a 501c3 or go through that legwork to do that. So we have several programs that we're targeting to work underneath Roots Regeneration, and that is Local First Indy, which is local business advocacy, advocating that people should shop locally independent. It helps their communities hold their supply chains accountable. Local businesses often pay more money in wages, keep their labor longer, their employees are happier, they're better community partners in the sense that they give more philanthropy back than the corporations. So we're going to do Local First Indy as a Local First directory in Indianapolis. We're going to attempt to do Transition Indy based on the transition towns. That's kind of an experiment where on a block by block level, neighborhoods work to lower their contributions to climate change. And so I think in terms of that, there's things like insulating your buildings, getting them on renewable energy, the various systems like that. Permaculture is a big part of it, localizing food shed. And speaking of localizing food shed, another project is Slow Money Indiana. A sister organization to Slow Food Movement is Slow Money Movement, and that believes that we have to slow money down in Wall Street, or from Wall Street. We have to take money out of Wall Street and put it towards soil fertility building projects. And so the Slow Money Movement often invests in their locally organized initiatives to create return on investments projects by investing in local food shed and soil fertility. And so we're working to help get a return on investment club off the ground that's investing in soil fertility and local food shed. And then kind of lastly, there's more programs than that, but one of the last ones that I'll focus on today is just a co-op incubator. As a worker ownership, a worker-owned cooperative, we see the benefits of all the segments of cooperative: co-housing, buyer cooperative, producer cooperative, worker-owned cooperative. And so our co-op incubator is kind of our work we'll probably pair that up with Indiana Cooperative Development Center to incubate real cooperatives, and those will work for many different partners. So anyways, a lot of this broader Blink model was based on what I learned of this Spanish company called the Mondragon Corporation, which I'll just read this. The Mondragon Corporation is a corporation and federation of worker cooperatives based in the Basque region of Spain. It was founded in the town of Mondragon, 1956, by graduates of a local technical college. Its first product was paraffin heaters. It is the 10th largest Spanish company in terms of asset turnover and the leading business group in the Basque Country. At the end of 2014, it employed 74,117 people in 257